If you enjoyed this video, leave it a like, leave it a comment, and make sure that you are subscribed. So, tonight we are headed over to Michigan. Shout out to all my friends in Michigan. So, have you guys seen or heard of the movie Jeepers Creepers from 2001? It was a pretty popular horror movie, and there are some sequels. I haven't seen it personally. But anyway, tonight we're going to talk about the case that inspired Jeepers Creepers. And at the end, I'll tell you a little bit about the movie. There's only a little bit of a connection there, as you'll see. So we are talking about a married couple named Dennis and Marilyn Depue. And this case took place beginning in the year 1990 and ending in 1991. Alright, so some background on Marilyn. She was born Marilyn McClenahan on January 24th, 1941 in Detroit, Michigan. She graduated from Edsel Ford High School, and she received a degree in counseling from Wayne State University. She taught English at Livonia High School for 7 years. And then in 1971, she started working at Coldwater High School in Coldwater, Michigan. She started as a substitute teacher and also a continuing education teacher. But a year later, she began working there as a guidance counselor. She was very well respected and loved by her co-workers and the students. Now some background on Dennis Depue. He was born on June 13th, 1943 in Sturgis, Michigan. He graduated from Burr Oak High School and received a bachelor's in business education from Michigan State University. He was employed for over 20 years for the state of Michigan in the Department of Treasury as a property tax specialist. He had also taught business education in Portland, Oregon, and in Los Angeles. He attended Burr Oak United Methodist Church and was a member of the MSU Alumni Association. At the time of this case, he was a property assessor, and Marilyn was, as I said before, a guidance counselor. Now, in 1971, that is the year when the two married. I don't know exactly how they met, unfortunately. But they married and they had three children. And they lived in a house in Coldwater, Michigan. Now, as time went on in their relationship, Dennis began to get very paranoid and isolate himself from the family and frequently accused Marilyn of turning the children against him. And she had had just about enough of his behavior by 1989. They had been married for 18 years, and she got a divorce from him at that time. She told her lawyer that he was trying to control every decision that she made in her life, and enough was enough. Now, she got the house in the settlement, and he seemed, okay about that. He had a home office in the garage, which he kept. And Marilyn changed all the locks on the house. But even after having done that, she came home one day and found him sitting on the couch. She had no idea how he had gotten in, but she was very concerned. Now, he had visitation of his children, but whenever it was his turn to have them, for a day, they didn't want to go. And he knew it, which he continued to blame that on Marilyn, saying, she turned them against him. That is why they did not want to go with him. And he was really, really aggravated by this. Now, in 1990, on Easter Sunday, when they had been divorced for, I guess, around a year, it was his day to have the children, and he came to the family house to pick them up. It was April 15th, to be exact, 1990. Now, right away, the kids did not want to go. The oldest daughter just downright refused. I'm not going, and I don't think he felt he could do anything about it, but he went into the house and found the youngest son and grabbed him and was like, "We're gonna be going now, like it or not," kind of thing. And the kid was screaming, he didn't want to go. And Marilyn intervened, yelling, "No, you can't take him, no, you can't force him." So she was standing, I guess, right near the basement stairs, and Dennis pushed her, and she fell down the whole flight of stairs right down to the floor in the basement. And of course, you can imagine, she's down there, she's injured, she's in a lot of pain. Well, what does he do? He goes down there and starts beating her, making things even worse at this point. I guess he had totally lost control of his anger at this point. And the kids are standing there, okay, at the top of the stairs, like helpless, yelling, "Stop, you're hurting her." The oldest daughter ran out of the house to the neighbor's house for help, and they called the police. But meanwhile, Dennis managed to drag Marilyn back up the stairs following behind them for the next 2 miles or so. And they're thinking, is he following us? Like, are we in trouble? Like, I mean, are we in danger? So they make a turn to get away, hoping he doesn't follow them, and he doesn't. But then they turn around and look, and they see that he has now pulled over. And he has gotten out of the car, and something's going on over there. They decide to turn around, go back, and try to write down his full license plate so they can call the cops. Now remember, they don't have cell phones, okay? There's no cell phones at this time, or not many, in 1990. So they go back, and now they see that he is crouched behind his van, and he is removing the license plate. Like he read their mind or something. He's removing the license plate. And what's even worse is they can see that the passenger side door is open, and the inside of the door is covered with blood. So they decide now they're gonna go back to the schoolhouse themselves. This does sound like a movie, like most people would just go to the police station at this point, or go find a phone, But they go back to the schoolhouse to see what it was, see if he had left something there. Some clues. So they go there, and what they find is what they thought was the sheet with blood. It was a blanket. It was a white blanket covered with blood. And it was kind of in like a small hole, like a hole big enough for an animal, not like a grave type of a hole, just a small hole. So now, they contact the police, and it turns out that the police were looking for this guy, Dennis Depue, and his wife Marilyn. And it seems like this is the same person. So the police begin searching this abandoned schoolhouse and the entire area around it. But they don't find anything. There's no body there or anything. But sadly, the next day, Marilyn's body was found. She had been shot once in the back of the head, and she was deceased, sadly. She was found on the road halfway between the schoolhouse and the family home. Now, unfortunately, they were not able to find Dennis or his car. He was long gone by the time the body was found. I mean, they searched their hardest, but they could not find him. Over the next several weeks, Dennis sent a series of letters to his friends. There were a total of 17 letters sent from various postmarks such as Virginia, Iowa, and Oklahoma. And these were very, very long, rambling letters explaining why he had done what he had done, and basically blaming it on Marilyn, saying that she had tricked him, she had lied to him, and he had lost everything. He had lost his wife in the divorce, he had lost his children and his home, and he was too old to start over, and that is why he had done what he had done. Now, go forward about a year. It was March 20th, 1990, his van was in the driveway. Normally he kept his van in the garage, but now it was in the driveway. And he told her that he had to make an emergency trip back to his home because his mother was very sick. And he asked her to make him some sandwiches to bring with him on the road. The TV was on in the background and Unsolved Mysteries was on. He was trying to keep his girlfriend busy, keep her distracted. I don't know why he just didn't turn it off, but according to the story, he was busily distracting her with making sandwiches, and he was gathering up his stuff, trying to rush around and get out of there. When he left and he gave her a kiss goodbye, she had a gut feeling that she would never see him again. Now, as you may have guessed, his name was not really Hank Queen. This was actually Dennis Depue, under a new identity. And when he saw this episode, he knew right away that anyone who saw it and knew him now as Hank, they would know that he was the guy on the show. Now, what happened was some of Hank's girlfriend's friends saw the show as it was aired, and they contacted the police and gave them the license plate number that Hank had. And so the police immediately started to search for that car. But of course he was on the run and he had a little bit of a head start. So now 4 hours later, he was spotted in Louisiana, and he got into a 15-mile high-speed chase with state troopers. He crossed over into Mississippi, and finally he rammed into some kind of a roadblock, and the police managed to shoot out his tires, so they went flat. And he had no choice but to stop because the car wouldn't go anymore. It was about 4 a.m. at this point, and when he stopped the car, the officers approached him and found that he had taken his own life. He had shot himself. And that's pretty So